Welcome to the podcast. The first topic I really want to dive deep into with you, because we got to know each other from Facebook, is you first had a PR agency where I think you helped people get a blue tick on Instagram and all sorts of other stuff. I still remember when I got onto your profile for the first time, I was like, whoa, this guy, he has a blue tick. How did you get into there?
Okay. So it's a good story, but I'm actually kind of it's slightly depressing right now as well. So, okay, so basically, I was running a coaching business at the time, and I was doing decently well for myself. I had just hit my first 10K month, and I was about 19 at the time. And this was before the whole, coaches helping coaches become like that's what everybody was doing. Of course, people were doing it back then. This would have been what, 3-something years ago. But it was just nowhere near as potent as what is become in the past year and a half, 2 years. So yeah, I'm doing decent money for myself, and I have a friend, and this friend was helping me with my sales, showing me how to close better. And he goes, "I think you'd be really good," because I'm decent at copywriting. He was like, "I think you'd be really good at copywriting for a client of mine." So I'm like, "Who's the client?" And he goes, "It's this real big guy on Instagram. He's verified blue check. He runs a PR agency. He's really successful. His name is Dylan Kevo." Okay. So I'm like, okay, yeah, hook me up with a call with him. So he gets me on a call with him. And he's like, "Dylan, Matthew is very good at copywriting. He'll be really good at writing copy for you. I think you should work with him." This Dylan Kevo guy turns around and he's like, "Okay, I'll make you an offer." Right? He's like, "If you write me XYZ document," I can't remember the details, but he was like, "If you write me XYZ document, I will publish you in 5 PR sites, Fox News." It was like CNN, like all these main ones, right? And I remember being like, wowed. I was like, wow, like publishing all these sites. I was like, that would be incredible, right? So I'm like, okay. And he goes, "By the way, I charge like $3,000 for just those sites." So I'm like, okay, cool, sure. So I give him what he asks for, and then he says, "Message my assistant, blah, 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 give her these details, and she'll write you the article as well and publish it for you." So I'm thinking, fantastic. So I go off and I get the details, I send the details to him, and I can wait like a week, and I get these links come back. I'm in Fox. Like, wow. And I Google myself, and nothing shows. Like, absolutely nothing shows. And I'm thinking, well, I thought he said that these articles would show online. So I start doing some investigation, and then I get this Indian guy message me on Instagram, being like, just bluntly, like, "You got ripped off." Just bluntly, right? And I remember just being like, "What do you mean?" And this guy goes, "How much did you pay for them?" I said, "Well, I didn't pay anything for them. I got them for free." But I was like, I think he said they were worth like 3K. And this Indian guy's like mocking me, right? He's like leaving these laughing emojis, and he's like, no, 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 no. He's like, "You got," like, he was like, whoever you're working with, not telling you the truth, right? And by the way, it's not that the Dylan Kevo fella, I don't really know him, right? It's not that he was doing anything wrong. That's just the name of the game, right? You sell PR, you make it seem like it's a big article, when in actual reality it's not. It just is what it is. So this guy's like, "That's not the real Fox. It's like a subsidiary site, and it's not real." So I'm like, "Well, what do you know?" And he goes, "I know a lot about PR because I've actually published for Dylan Kevo." So I'm like, oh, snap. So I give him my number. I'm like, "Give me a call." So he calls me, and he's like, what are you aiming for?" And I said, "I don't know." I was like, "I just wanted articles because they look cool." And he was like, "Are you trying to get verified?" Now, a bit of backstory. When I was 17, I blew up on Instagram. I was in the fitness space. I ended up getting about 60K IG followers, completely organic in a couple months, 10% engagement rate. I just completely blew up. So I was familiar with verification. But as far as I was aware, it was only accessible to those that had, lots of money, or were wealthy, or celebrities, right? Not for just common people. And he goes, no, 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 no. Almost everybody who gets verified, unless you're huge, like Kim Kardashian kind of huge, he was like pretty much paid to get verified. This was news to me, right? I'm like thinking, you can pay to get verified. He was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So how'd you do it? And he goes, "You can't buy the tick directly." He was like, "But you can buy PR to influence their decision in giving you the tick." So I'm like, okay, well, how do I do that? Because bear in mind now, again, like I said, I just hit like my first 10K month. I had money. I was living at home. I was paying my parents a little bit of rent, not much. So I was just stacking money. Do you know what I mean? I think I probably had 30K pounds or something at the time. So I'm thinking, who cares, right? Like, this isn't going to cost me a lot. So I'm like, how much? And he goes, I can do XYZ blah, blah, blah article for you for $500. I look at Dylan Keevo's pricing. Dylan Keevo's pricing was like 1,500. So I was like, this is a no-brainer. But I didn't trust him because he was Indian and they got a bad rep, right? So he turns around and he goes, okay, I'll publish the article for free for you. And then once you see it's legit, then you pay me and we'll do a gentleman's agreement. I can't knock that. So he publishes the article, it's perfect. I send him the money. Then he goes, if you get XYZ articles, you can get it Facebook verified. So I'm like, how much? And I think he said at the time it was about, the total cost of all the articles, because I was buying them individually, was like 3K. In that realm, right? And he was like, okay, give me the money and I'll sort it out for you. So, send him the money, I write out the PR what I want, publish the PR. Comes back, and he's like, I think you're ready, you could probably get verified. Thinking, okay. So I go on the app, submit, I don't get it. I come back to him, I'm like, what do I do now? And he's like, you probably need more. So I'm like, and I'm trying to think now, am I getting scammed? Or but again, right, I was 19, I had money, so why not? So I'm like, and by the way, you know, for Facebook and Instagram, this was all completely organic, of course. So I pay the guy the money to sort out organising the PR and all the details and getting me published and all sorts of stuff. And then he comes back and goes, now you have to pay for submission. So I'm like, well, submission. And he goes, okay, well, we don't submit you through your Facebook profile. We have a portal. And for those who don't know the PR world, the portal is almost like, imagine you're a big ads agency, a big Facebook ads agency with hundreds of clients. They have access to Instagram and Facebook more personally, let's call it, right? And they can submit for verification on their clientele's behalf. So when people say they paid for PR, because Facebook and Instagram say you can't pay for PR, you're paying for it, but you're technically not, right? Because you're technically paying for an agency to organically submit you on your behalf. So you are paying for it, but you're not paying for it directly. You're paying for someone to help you get it, in other words, right? So when people say, I can sell you verification, that's pretty much a no-go, because what they're saying is, I can actually put it on your account. That will get you banned. But doing it this way is completely organic. On paper, anyway. So I pay him and he submits me. And I'm because remember, right? Facebook and Instagram, you can just pay monthly for it now. So the whole credibility of the Instagram, Facebook tick is completely devalued. And now I just look like some bum who's paying to be verified, right? but which is not ideal, but it is what it is, right? So he submits me, and I've got all this complete like anxiousness. I'm like, please get it, please get it. I just knew at the time, as you know, that if I was verified when nobody else is verified, really, then I'm going to have so much success on the DMs with getting leads and so on that it's going to be easy. And I wake up one morning and I'm sitting there, and I remember it so vividly. I come downstairs because I was in the attic in my bed. And I come downstairs, my hair's mess, I'm in my pajamas, and I make myself a coffee, and I go into my grandmother's room because my grandmother lives in my parents. I go into my grandma's room and I'm sitting down on the sofa and she's got the TV on some regular news show, and we're just sitting there and I'm just refreshing, right? And on one of the refreshes, probably like my 100th one, just this blue check mark hits right next to my name. And I was over the moon. I just jumped up and I was like, Mom, Dad, I'm verified. It worked. I didn't get scammed. I'm verified. Because this was like a 3-month process of just doing PR all the time, right? And then, like, I had so many messages of people being like, how'd you do it? So this is where the PR agency came from. Being entrepreneurial, I'm thinking, well, why wouldn't I sell this? So I go back to the mall and I'm like, oh, bro, like, you just need PR. Like, it's not that difficult. And they were like, well, how'd you do that? And I'm like, well, I mean, I can do it for you. And they were like, okay, sure. So I went to the Indian guy. And I would say his name out of respect, but I don't want to say his name because he's such a valuable contact. I don't even want to leave anybody near him, right? But so I go to the Indian guy. So we'll call him the Indian guy. He won't mind, right? So I go back to the Indian guy and I'm like, dude, can I resell on top of your prices? Because his prices were so cheap, right? And he was like, yeah, why not? So I was like, cool. So I went back to him and I was like, because remember, he was struggling to charge a lot of money because people's perception of it, where people perceive me as trustful because I'm British and decently successful, so I can get away with it. So I went back to him and I was like, yeah, dude, like, so I do this article, that article, 1,500 and so on. I will say this. I was actually overly generous, in my opinion, with marking up prices. Like, I didn't mark them up a lot at all. People in PR mark prices up a lot, like disgustingly so. Like, they're getting the article for $100 and they're selling it for $2,000. I was way more reasonable than that. Like, if I was getting it cost price for 300, I marked it up to like 600. Do I regret that? Yes, I could have made a lot of money, but at least I was honest. So I mark it up, right, and I start getting some sales on this, and delivery was easy because I just found reliable writers. One was called Harry, and now he writes copy for the company Agora that you may or may not know. It's like worth billions. And I was like, how much? He was like $30 an article. I was like, sweet. So I made a job form and everything. Client would sign up, send them through the job form, collect their details. Details would ping to Harry. Harry's a professional copywriter. Harry writes an awesome article. Harry fires it to the Indian guy. The Indian guy publishes it. I pay the Indian guy at the end of the month everything I owe him. I keep the profit. And I just ran it like that. And it did decently well, except there were a few negatives that people watching may be able to learn from. I've certainly learned from them. Okay, so number one, never, when you start making good money, in my opinion, especially when you're young, when pay for something that is a commodity and not something that drives actual revenue. So I'll give you an example. As soon as I start the PR agency, I start making decent money now, doing basically nothing, right? So some months we would do 15, 20K, not all profit. And then other months we would do as low as like 5K. But I really wasn't working a lot at this time, right? I was not doing much at all. It was like a vacation. So I was enjoying it. And if you look at my Facebook profile, my Instagram, I was completely inactive for about a year and a half. I didn't make almost any posts at all. So I was doing no content. I was doing no DMs because I had just built this little network. Some of my clients are like Nathan Zale, Zach Machuca, guys who run multi-million-dollar agencies, right? And they just pay me on a consistent basis. So I was like, I don't really need to work. So I've got this money coming in, and the Indian fella goes, bro, you should just go to get Instagram verified. And I'm like, how do I do it? And he's like, it's the exact same as Facebook, but it just takes more articles again. But the process is the same. But the difference was you needed higher tier articles, as they call it. So you needed like Forbes, New York Times, some more serious names. And many of them are actually pretty difficult to get, and you do require an organic connection to get it. You can't just go up to a Forbes journalist and be like, can I sling you $1,000 and you'll publish it? It just doesn't work like that. Because if they get caught, they are 100% never going to be able to publish on Forbes again. So it's far more intricate than that, right, to get a direct connection. So I start working on getting some direct connections. I start getting published in some bigger sites. And some journalists require a legitimate good story as well. Like, you can't just make an article being like, top entrepreneur, John makes millions. Like, it has to be a good backstory, etc., etc. So I start working on this for about probably talking about 6 months, I would say, of getting different articles, making different connections. And of course, you've got to spend some money to make those connections as well. I spend quite a lot of money making connections. Yeah. Do I say a number? Yeah, I spend quite a lot. Okay, so as we kind of, we're making these connections, finally I get verified on Instagram. And here's why I say don't pay for a commodity. I paid for Instagram, and I paid for the connections that I paid for to get access to what I needed to get access to get verified on Instagram. Because at the time, my vision was, there's an agency on Facebook and on Instagram called High Key Agency, owned by a guy called Luke Lintz. And they make, I think, 8 figures, right? And they did these influencer shout-out sort of agencies. And they were living this high life, and it appeared like that they were making insane money, which I believe they are. And they were selling PR packages for like 20 grand, when in reality, I know the cost price of that entire package was like 2. So their markup was huge. And their target market were like models, for example, that have got 150,000 Instagram followers or 400,000 Instagram followers, but are not verified. OnlyFans models, things like that, right? And they go for those guys who can pay the 20, 30 grand charge them 20, 30 grand, and then make huge money. So I was doing it not out of vanity, but thinking from a business perspective. I'm already making money. So if I pay for more connections and then I get verified on Instagram, I can skip past the request box, because that's one of the features of Instagram verification, straight into the main box of these celebrities and influencers, and just make complete bank, become a millionaire, and be happy for the rest of my life. That was the idea, right? Except what happened was I did all of that, and I got verified, but then I never used it. And the reason why is quite literally because I ended up kind of starting to do DMs and so on, and just being like, I've paid for something to create me more work when I could have just doubled down on what I was already doing, which was not a lot of work and making me money. So I had this huge resistance to do anything with it, because I was like, it just doesn't make logical sense. So here I have this asset at the time that's now completely been bulldozed by Elon Musk and Zuckerberg, right? But I had this asset at the time that, you know, I thought would make me a lot of money. And I believed it would, but only if I did something with it. It's not like I bought real estate, right, and had someone renting it. I had to actually use it. It's like a sports car. I'm going to buy a Lamborghini for marketing purposes. Well, yeah, that's fine, but you better actually market with it, and market with it a lot to make your return of investment. And the worst part about it was this. So the Instagram's sitting there, and I remember telling myself, it's an asset for life unless Instagram shuts down, which is unlikely to happen anytime soon. So I remember thinking, I'll just pick it up, you know, whenever I feel like. Never in a million years did I think it would become something that you could just pay for on a monthly basis. So that completely ruined that. So now it's just sitting there. I mean, most people I know I got it before you could just pay for it monthly. But in regards to like reaching out to new prospects and things like that, the difference now is completely negligible compared to what I first was looking for. And then the demise of the PR agency began. Essentially what happened was I just spent a lot of money making connections. I was paying for courses to learn different things to scale the agency. I was just burning through money. Plus, I brought on a partner early on in doing all of this, who's still my partner today. But obviously the difficulty is you're splitting money then 50-50 as well. So you're splitting profits 50-50. PR, you're probably working on a 50 to 60% profit margin if you're lucky. And I was shelling out almost all the money that was coming in, reinvesting back into the business, pumping money into the IG verification, pumping money into just building out a cool website and building out the agency, and not pocketing anything. And my justification was, well, because I'm not paying rent at home, I don't need the money. And that was kind of dumb, because if you think about it, had I stacked all that money, the options that I had would have been ridiculous. But because I put it into a commodity that relied on my actual time and usage to make money from, I basically burnt all the money. Had I put the 30K into like real estate or something, it would have made a lot more sense. But I put it into something that required my time and energy for it to work. And I had no control really over whether my future self would actually utilize it or not. And I didn't utilize it. And then the asset got destroyed by becoming even more of a commodity. So overall, it was a terrible end to the PR run, but it was good, and I learned a lot of lessons through it. But the most important thing that I gained out of the PR run was just a lot of connections and quite high-level clientele. And status, don't get me wrong. The IG verification brought status, and it helped with a lot of things. So I did make my money back on it for sure in other ways. But the reason I ended up closing up the PR agency thing was really profit. I ended up moving out of my parents' house, getting an apartment. Then by the time in the UK, I don't know how it works there, but you need to show proof of income. And for the apartment they wanted $1,500 a month proof of income. I was making way more than $1,500 a month income. But here's the issue. It was going to my business account, not my personal account.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to them, like, I've got the money. Like, I can show you my bank account. And they were like, well, we get it, but it ain't in your personal account. I was like, well, I can send it to my personal account. And they were like, yeah, but we need to see pay slips that you have paid yourself $1,500 a month for the last 12 months. And I'm like, well, what if I just pay myself 20 grand now? and say that I paid myself 1,500, they were like, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So I remember saying to my father, like, what am I supposed to do? And my dad was helping me try to find an apartment and everything. And they were all the real estate agents. I was like, so dumb. I'm offering you money and you won't take it. And then I found this old school guy, and he was like, show me your bank account. So I literally found this apartment. I showed him the bank account, and he went, okay, cool. He said, pay me 6 months up front.
Yeah.
And it was lovely. It was a nice apartment. Two bedroom apartment, huge living room. It was really nice, especially where I come from. I had a good deal on it. And he was like, yeah, pay me 6 months up front. So I just sent him the 6 months up front, signed the contract, moved into the apartment. But then this was new to me now, having rent to pay, food to pay for, everything to pay for. And I was just like, and I was paying myself a low amount to avoid tax. So I was like trying to stay in that lower tax bracket and pay for all the bills. And I'm only taking 50% on every sale. And I was doing a lot of the work myself. And I've shelled out all this money on connections and stuff. I was like, it's just not sustainable. My stress went through the roof. Now we're getting into some health stuff. My stress went through the roof. I started having outbreaks of psoriasis. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I ended up towards the tail end of that year just being like, I'm done. I wrapped up the last few clients and I did absolutely no work for the next like 8 months. I just paid rent and lived off of money that I had. And then finally then towards the end, which was literally, this is only last year, right? Around summertime last year, I launched the new business, which was sales therapy. Didn't really go all in on that actually either until probably the beginning of this year. So the past year and a half, even close to 2 years, I've kind of just been like, just sort of just chilling almost and relaxing. It took a lot out of me, but that's the story of the PR agency. I learned a lot from it. It was entertaining for sure. I gained a lot, I lost some, but nothing that I can't make back. And now I'm on to another venture.
Yeah, and super interesting story, because even if what you said, like you didn't make the money out of it, you've learned so many valuable lessons that you're taking away now into the new business venture. Later, I want to go into what drives you now, because you said, hey, 1.5 years, 2 years, I've been maybe in not a slump, but not doing as much, just chilling out. First, let's look back. What would you actually do differently now? You already said don't invest money into a commodity, but what is a lesson you took away from that period?
So probably the biggest difference now is on the financial end is the money that I make now. I'm still very carefree is the wrong word, but I'm not attached to it. Like I was never attached to it when we did the PR. You can't spend the money that I spent that year as a 19, 20-year-old and be attached to money. You just can't, right? I was going through a lot of money. Like I'm talking $5,000 would come in, I'd send a wire payment of 8K. Like I was just whatever, right? I got a gold Amex card, and on one particular month, without having, I think I had about 6K in the business account, I put 20 grand on that Amex. Because I was just confident that I would make that 20 grand, and I did. So I've never really been that attached to money. It's never really owned me like that. But the biggest difference though is where I put it now. So there I was putting it into things that were, let's call it dreams. Things that made me enthusiastic. Like, oh, that'd be cool. Like a child in a candy store. That'd be cool to have. That'd be awesome to try. Now I'm just far more logical about it. Now I'm like, if I can't see how this is going to provide me a direct return of investment, and I can't say with almost 100% probability that I'm going to utilize it, then I'd rather just leave the money in the bank account and pay it to myself personally so I can continue to fund things like traveling and staying in nice places. So yeah, most of the money that comes in now, I'm focused very, very heavily on using it logically. For example, I have my own appointment setting team. And 2 of the guys that are doing quite well now are pretty new, right? And one's an electrician, his name's Aaron. And the other one is named Graf. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, I think it's Turkish. But I think he's a student in uni. And, you know, these guys, I think they make a bit of money, but they've never experienced what it's like to make, you know, 8K a month, 10K a month, and not have to turn up to a job. And I feel like I owe them, right? I feel like I owe them because they're giving me their time on a commission basis, and I feel like I need to get them paid. So I'm in constant communication with them on like, what do you need to make this work? And if they come back and they're like, hey dude, like I booked you another call, you know, I really hope he closes, blah, blah, blah. and I can see that he's lacking a bit of motivation because he hasn't got a close in a while. If his commission is supposed to be 10%, I'll give him 30%. If I bring another guy on and he's like, I really want this job, but I have bills, and 10% ain't gonna cut it, now what do you need? If I like the guy and the guy's like, I need at least 40%. It don't cost me nothing, right? I've got the business down to a point where delivery isn't that difficult for me. So it's like an online business, any online business. If you can remove delivery, then you remove your time. If you can remove your time, why does it matter if I give you 10% or 40%? Makes no difference to me, right? So I'll give him 40%. So that's where I put my money more now. I just try to put my money into people more and growing more. And I find that it's far more profitable because even if that person doesn't bring you a direct return of investment, it's almost certainly guaranteed that you'll gain something out of it that was worth it. So yeah, it's very, what's the word, common to say, but it's true. It's like if you take care of the people around you, they will take care of you. So yeah, I put my money more into that.
Yeah, super interesting. And is that a lesson you learned from a book or a mentor, or was it like purely because of the past business venture, or how did you get that realization?
Just past. I mean, everybody, like I used to read a lot when I was younger, and I occasionally do. You know, I'll watch podcasts and all sorts of things. But for me, one of the issues that I've always had in the past was I'm very analytical, very logical, and I'm decently intelligent, and I can absorb information very well, especially if I like it. And that's really good, but that's also very detrimental in some ways, because the more information that you absorb of others, the less personally creative you are, right? Like if every time you go to make a decision, you have 20 different data points to analyze, it becomes difficult to make that decision. If there's no data points, it's all creativity. It's just whatever comes to you, it's just like you have to work it out. And for me, I've spent pretty much all my life collecting data points and then trying to decide which data point makes the most sense. Recently, I've been trying to come away from that. And whenever there's a decision to be made, instead of going, which is the most logical thing to do, I kind of just go a lot more off. The question I ask myself is, if I deleted all the information that I know of other people in this space and had to come up with my own original idea, how would I handle this situation? And that's been giving me way more success than collecting data points off others. In other words, trusting my own ability, because I have a very good ability, but I've just never put much trust in it.
Yeah, and it's also one point I want to get into is I've noticed it as well when you're watching a lot of YouTube videos or podcasts, is everyone has their own vision about life, and their vision works. But what doesn't work is having, what you said, 20 data points of people saying, oh yeah, no, you have to first do A, then do B. And then the second guy, who's also a millionaire, says, no, you first have to do C, then B, then A. And when you have all those data points in your head, you completely forget about, you just get overwhelmed and you can't make the right decision. Whereas all those data points have been put into your subconscious. So if you just, what you said, you trust your own ability, you will find out what works. And of course, if you see that it doesn't work, you can always look at certain mentors or someone has done what you want to do and look at, hey, how would he do it? How can I do it as well? Super interesting. Yeah. And so now we've talked a lot about your previous business. What are you doing now exactly, and how did you get into that? Because you were first doing the sales therapy, now you're doing more the appointment setters. How did you make that change, and what do you do exactly?
Yeah, so I needed to come back, right? Because, money's going down. I'm spending from the money that I've made in the past. It's just trickling down. I'm spending. Because of the psoriasis outbreak thing as well, I got into eating clean, which we'll touch on later. I got into eating clean and spending money into investing in health. And as you probably know, that is not cheap. So I'm just draining, right? Like bank account is draining right now. And I was still, I was making a little bit here and there, but just not where I needed to be. I was like, I need to make a comeback, start from scratch. What should I do? Original idea, what should I do? And I thought to myself, well, when you were, 18, 19 years old and you started online business seriously, I started at 17, but when I started seriously, I was on Facebook and I was making random Facebook posts about content and topics that I knew. Never did a sent a DM in my life. Didn't take a sales call. I was making $3,000 a month at like 80, right? So I remember thinking to myself, I don't need a lot of money. I only need like $3-4 grand a month. So I was like, why don't I just do what I was doing at 18 and see if it works? So I'm like, what product can I sort of make? So I'm thinking, what realm am I intelligent in and do I know a lot about? And I thought, well, I know a lot about PR, but I'm like, I don't like that. I know a lot about this, I don't like that. And then I thought, a compliment that I typically get is that I'm very good at communication, right? Whether that be via call or via text, just the overall ability to be well-spoken, string words together and things along those lines. And that's a big part of sales calls, and I'm decent on sales calls, and I've always had a very easy time with communication. So that bred this idea of, okay, well, I'll help people with communication, i.e. sales. And then I thought, what is the biggest problem people have with sales? It's very difficult to identify one, right? It's like, it's so many. It's like, it's objections, it's mannerisms, it's confidence. I'm thinking, there's a lot. So I'm like trying to create a product that is one size fits all in the realm of sales. It's not impossible, but could be arguably inefficient. In other words, you could be making 50 different videos covering 50 different topics, covering this is how to speak, this is what to say. But then it turns out that the person watching on the other end of the video is only bad at sales because he grew up being bullied for his appearance. And when he comes on calls, he's insecure and he can't actually implement any of which you're teaching, right? Who puts a video in their course about facial insecurity, right, affecting your sales? Nobody. So I thought, well, what would that be called? I was like, well, that's somewhat like therapy, I guess. So then I constructed the name sales therapy. So I thought, okay, I'll help guys on a one-to-one basis come over whatever problem they have, it doesn't really matter, in the realm of sales, so they can close and book more appointments. And I go out, I sort of take it to the market, and I close a few clients with relative ease, and I was kind of happy because I was out of the game for an hour, for a year and a half. And I remember I made like a couple posts and I did about $4,000 in the first week. And I was like, it made me think, I still got it. So I was pretty happy about that. I bring these guys on and they were enjoying it. Like I was breaking down to them how to send appointments, how to book appointments. I was breaking down to them how I would personally sell. But the most integral part of the offer was breakdowns. So just coming on a call as if we were on a call right now, allowing you to play your sales calls, allowing you to show me your inbox, and me getting into your head as to why you're doing these things and giving you pointers and trying to get to the bottom of things and making you good at sales. And it worked quite well and people had results and I was pretty happy about that. And then I took another layoff. So I was just like this, right? Just all over the place, like a young life crisis sort of thing, right? Yeah. And the reason I took this layoff was actually the psoriasis related. So what happened was I had a bit of this now for a year or two, right? Quite a while, but it was not bad at all, and it didn't really bother me that much. And then one particular year or whatever, I can't remember the dates exactly, but I started having it around my eyes here, and it was not that bad at all. And I think I psychologically created a bigger issue physically, so it was not that bad at all. What I should have done is like what kids do when they cut their knee. They cut their knee, they cry, they move on, and it heals. I should have gone, interesting, that'll go. I moved on with my life. I don't know why. Perhaps it was just an empty point in my life. But I attached to it very closely and really took a hit. Like, to the point where my family, my friends were like, dude, nobody can see it. Like, what are you worrying about? But because I'm used to looking in the mirror like this every morning, I'm seeing it really close. And I remember being like, no, you could see it, and I don't like it, I don't like this. I was like, it needs to go. And I didn't like the health aspect of it because I thought it's wrong, it's an autoimmune disease, this is not good. And I was obsessing about it. Then I started doing research, how do I get rid of it? Carnivore diet, all sorts of things, right? And I started literally, instead of showing up for clients and working, because I've got a bit of money, I spent the entire day, every week, every month, just researching into how to fix it, right? But every month it got worse. Despite the fact that I'm supposedly on paper doing everything possible to fix it, carnivore, lowering inflammation, cold therapy, right? I'm doing everything, but I'm getting worse. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And then I paid for a coach, and this coach kind of revealed to me it's probably more of an emotional side with you than anything. And I've started to tone that in. I still haven't got rid of it completely by all means. There's some here in my brow, some here in my nose. I got a little bit on the back of the ear, right? By no means have I got rid of it completely. But it's drastically better. And I believe that there's another level and another paradigm that I need to get to emotionally, where I'm able to, just because I'm analytical, I can stress a lot, I can worry a lot, I can overthink minute details a lot. And I'm clearly, I guess, via epigenetics, predisposed for that to be a health symptom. And it seems to follow the emotional pattern quite well. And I found the coach, started working on it, and, I'm doing much better now. Now, with that being said, I now need another comeback. I'm like, what am I going to do now? So I'm like, I'm not going to abandon the sales therapy idea, because I thought part of it was somewhat, ingenious. I was like, it's fresh, it's new, people liked it. I thought, let's roll with that. But I was like, how do I expand on it? So I'm sending DMs myself again at this point. I'm back to square one, back to the basics. And I'm hating it every minute of it. I'm like, I remember doing this. This is why I stopped working for a year and a half. I was like, it sucks. So my friend, my business partner, who was my business partner in the agency, right? We broke up from the agency thing, and then he started doing his own thing, and he actually took a job as a sales rep. And he was essentially giving me tips on how to get leads, basically, right? And he was like, you could get leads this way, you could get leads this way, all centered around appointment setting still, but just different variations and takes on it. And the idea was, build a commission-based appointment setting team, have all these young, hungry guys go out there and get you leads. And at first I thought, well, that seems amazing, but it seems unrealistic, too good to be true. Why would a bunch of guys go out there and get me leads when they could just make their own money? But I started to explore it. And I started making job posts in Facebook groups. And I started building out an infrastructure to host setters. I start just making claims like, I'll give you 20% commission, and I'll do this, and I'll do that. And essentially selling the dream that is very real, that my name is Matthew. I've done all of this in my life. I'm very well spoken. I'm very good at sales. I know what I'm doing. If you help me, we will make money together. You just have to trust me. That sort of approach. And people did. And they joined. And then I narrowed those down that weren't as serious to the people that I like, that were with me, that were actually sending messages that we got along. And I was like, look, guys, sending DMs is horrible, right? And it takes a while to make money, and it especially takes a while to even get to the stage where you can conceive of money, because you've got to warm all these cold leads up, and then you've got to make them hot, and then you've got to show them content, and then you've got to follow up. And I was like, oh, no. However, it's like, you're an electrician in London, and you hate it. What else are you going to do? And you're a uni student. What else are you going to do? And almost the frame is like, you know nothing about anything in business. You just want to get into it. And I know pretty much everything that you need to know. So wouldn't it make a lot more sense that you just basically, partner with me, so to speak, and do as I say? And for your labor, you'll make a substantial amount of money because, it'll work because I've done it a million times. And I was left with, out of a group of 40, I got 40 people signed up to work with me in about 4 or 5 days. By the end of the month, I cut that down to 4. And now I've cut that down to 2. Okay. They start sending messages, we're booking calls, and we're closing people on the sales therapy offer. And I'm just like, this is the upsell. Because all the clients that I was closing were starting to send messages and book calls and so on better again. But the difficulty they were having now is, hey, yeah, I know this works now, but I really don't want to do it anymore. So I thought, well, can we duplicate what I've done to get you as a client on you? So we take how I hired. So a couple things. How I trained them. So I built out a full appointment setting training from A to Z, in-depth, I believe, best on the market. Very in-depth. Again, because of my ability to be hyper-analytical and cause myself health issues out of my analytical ability, I can make very, very good trainings. So I made a very good appointment setting training. Then I went out and worked out how I can build everybody else and copy and paste them over a very solid infrastructure that keeps appointment setters engaged, gives them the training that they need, that you can communicate with, builds morale, etc. And then I went out and SOP'd and put a training together on how to hire. So how to find good guys, how to hire A-player appointment setters, how to actually get them to want to work, how to organize commission structures and things along those lines. And started plug and playing that in people's business for them. Pretty much done for you. It's not 100% done for you because obviously it's your team, it's your business, you need to have involvement. But we're doing like 90% of the load for you, basically. And within a matter of days, you've gone from you slaving away on the inbox to you've got 7, 8 guys internationally, 5 different time zones, sending DMs on your behalf. And there's a couple of beautiful things about this, which is why I believe it's working quite well and is a success right now. Number one, there's no brand reputation damage. So let's say you go out today and you hire an appointment setter to put him on your account, right? He's fresh, he's Dutch, he's young, you put him on your account. Without experience, you have to train him. What happens when you train someone? Well, they make mistakes. Oftentimes, they make mistakes for a long time, and they make a lot of mistakes. And what tends to happen is they blow through leads in the beginning because they're learning what to say and how to say it. And that always frustrated me in the past with hiring setters, not because it's their fault at all, but I just didn't like the model of it. I was like, I don't like the fact that I'm constantly on edge of you screwing up a lead that I would have otherwise closed, which then creates this feeling of I'll just do it myself. But then that defeats the purpose of trying to delegate it. So I was in this constant war of like, I don't like this. So I thought, well, if I hire commission-based setters and they're on their own account, and I show them how to brand themselves without actually associating themselves to me, they can screw up as many conversations as they want. And it has no hindrance on me whatsoever. And I'll only allow them to have association with me when they're already good enough that I trust them with association. And at that point, maybe then instead of just giving the appointment setters the base level training, then I'll give them resources of like my trainings and things like that they can leverage as well. So there's no brand reputation damage. Number two, doesn't cost anything. Of course, if someone was to work with me, they would have to pay my upfront fee. But if they were to do it themselves like I did, it costs you absolutely nothing. You get paid when the appointment setter gets paid. So it's a win-win. Then third, there's infinite scale. If you put an appointment setter on your account on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, you've got 3 appointment setters. And that's awesome, right? But now what? With this, I can put someone on my account, my Instagram, my LinkedIn, my partner's account, his Instagram, LinkedIn, and then also have another 20 people on their own accounts. So the minute that I feel like, okay, the training's working, everything's working, the leads are solid, my team is good, I need more leads now, I want to scale more now, I want to go from 10, 20K a month to 50, 60K a month, I just go out and repeat the entire cycle again. Hey, I'm looking for guys, it's already successful, my top appointment set is making $3,000 a month in commissions, he works like an hour a day, who wants to work for me, join the group. They join the group, they see the training, they go through all my SOPs and steps, they begin booking appointments, they come back, they're successful, those that aren't, I cut out the group, we rinse and repeat the cycle. So it worked so well that I was like, I need to duplicate this for others, so that's what I've done, and it's working well, and from what I've seen, it'll pretty much work for anybody, for as long as, if you're personally able to book appointments, and you have done in the past, and you know who your market is, who to go for, and so on, it's just taking you and replicating you across multiple different continents, time zones, countries, styles of speaking, and so on. So it's very foolproof. You just have to know how to put it together and how to motivate people to work. And if you're decent at leading, then you can do that. I actually made a free training on it this week where people can have a good idea of how to do it themselves, and then they can go off and attempt it themselves. And if they can't be bothered to do that and they want it done for you, then they can pay me and I just plug and play it for them. But that's what I'm doing now.
Super interesting. And one question I had is, how does it actually work with building up trust? Because I can imagine that from your personal account, you build up trust automatically with the content you have, with the amount of followers you have. The blue tick not anymore. But how do you build up trust with someone just sending outbound from his own account? Because I believe that's what they're doing, right? They're sending out messages from their own account. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so initially the way it started was like, I was like, I don't know how, initially, right? So initially it was like, I have no idea. I was like, let's just get these guys to just, and this is what's very interesting about this. As entrepreneurs, we always want to think of everything ourselves. See, now I thought, if I provide these men an opportunity that they want, then I'll trust that they have the intuition to work certain things out themselves in order to get success. So I didn't give them those details. I just said, start sending messages. All I told them was it would be ideal to, have a decent looking profile. I didn't go into depth. I didn't give them content. I said, put a cover photo up and have a profile picture. That's about the extent of what I gave them. Then I had guys come back, and this is where, okay, it gets very good. I had a couple of guys come back, and they were like, hey. I was like, yeah. And they were like, it's working, but I could do with some testimonials and stuff. And I was like, to be honest, dude, like, I could give you one, but I ain't going to give them to you until I can trust you having that association with me. So they were like, well, I don't know how to gain this trust. And they were like, I think I need content like you've got on your profile. Okay. And you really think it'll make a difference? And they were like, 100%, I just feel like if I post content, it'll make a difference. I get a guy reach out to me, trying to sell me a service on using AI to make content. And he goes, he says to me, I'll give you this for $30 or whatever, because it's new. And he was like, if you can give me feedback on it. I said, dude, I'm not going to pay $30 for it. I said, just send it to me and I'll read it and I'll give you feedback. So he just goes, okay. He sends it to me. I read it. And I'm like, this is good. But your display of the offer is horrendous. So I said to him, can I rip it apart and make your offer brand new, basically? Write the SOP. I'll write everything. And the only thing I want in return is everything you know about this for free. So he was like, all right, cool. So I rip it apart. He reads it and he goes, wow, like, thank you. He's like, this will be far easier to present. And he walks me through how he was making content through AI, specifically making like the Alex and Mosey kind of reels. So I asked him, could we do this without the video? So just the written posts? And he was like, oh, easily, yeah. He was like, you put these prompts into ChatGPT and it'll make posts. And he was like, for example, we could put in your profile and say, make a piece of content like Matthew J. Phillips on Facebook and write her in XYZ kind of style and blah, blah, blah. So I thought, let me try it. So I go to the set and I go, type in on ChatGPT, I want to post about how to book sales appointments. Use my URL for my profile as a data source, let's say. And I'll give you all these different prompts that you can try. Let's see how it comes out. And he comes back, sends me the piece of content. It looked identical to how I write. Right? There were some things that I were like, that needs tweaking. But for the most part, in other words, it was good enough where the average lead on Facebook or Instagram would not think that that guy was unqualified. Right? Definitely not as good as me writing the post. But within about a 70, 80% margin, it was close enough. So I said to the setters, do as you will with it. Like, this ain't my business. This is your business, right? If you want to use it, use it. If you don't use it, don't use it. Just do what you've got to do to make it work, right? And some calls started coming through and they were like, hey, it's working. I just throw in, I need a post on blah, 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 and it makes it. I throw in, I need a post on da-da-da, and it makes it. So now their profile looks trustworthy. When they gain a level of trust that I'm comfortable with, then I offer them my personal resources. So then I say to them, here's a new free training I made. Make a post saying, who wants to learn how to do da-da-da-da-da. And then when people say, I want to learn, you reach out to them. You say, here's my buddy's training, Matthew, send the link, and then work the lead from there. So trust isn't really that big of an issue if you create content through AI. And also we ideally try to only bring people on who are representative of what we're trying to sell. It's difficult on some offers. Like for your offer, it's pretty difficult. For my offer, it's pretty difficult. But if it's like a fitness offer, then we can just put in the job post, like, do not apply unless you're in good shape.
Yeah.
And then we can tell that guy, dude, like when you're in the gym, just take photos. So at least people can see that you're in solid shape. So if you're selling for a fitness coach, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Ours is a little bit more difficult, but still very easy to work around. And then once they've got the first couple of calls in and you're satisfied with their level of appointment setting, Then it's just a matter of taking all the resources you've got, giving them to the leads, and then just telling them, look, put content out, be kind of vague. Don't say I've made a training, say I've got a training, something along those lines, right? And then when you send it to them, you just say, hey, here's my business partner, Matthew. He made the training. You'll like it a lot. Can I ask how are you doing this right now? And then work them from there. And then I had doubts in the beginning of like, when the setter says to the guy, do you want to book a call? And the guy says yes. And then he sends him a link to somebody else's calendar. Would that look weird? Never had anybody bring it up.
Right.
Everybody just goes, okay, sir, and just books. And then I'll just tell the setter, just tell him so he's away. You'll be talking to my partner, Matthew. Something like that. It works completely fine. And then when they book, they go through the booking system, and then on the thank you page, we have on the page then, congratulations for booking. Your call is scheduled with Matthew. I have a video on there. Hi, my name's Matthew. I can help you with da-da-da. My name's da-da-da. And we've even got it on the page, right? If you're seeing this right now, you probably come from one of my setters. And it's hilarious how it works, because if you're seeing this right now, you've come from one of my setters. What am I selling you? What I just did to you. So why would you not trust me?
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing now, and it works really well. And it works even better for guys in your position. Like with Peak Club, for example, you've got insane results. You and your partners, all highly competent, got tons of content, really knowledgeable. In other words, you're an appointment setter's dream. Like, he would love to work for you because you've got everything. You've done everything. All he needs to do is put labor work in. So,
yeah, exactly.
And you're a dream client for people like me, because all I've got to do is give you the system and it just works. Exactly. So that's what I'm doing now, and it's good. And I'm really hoping, and that this is the one. In other words, I've done a lot of businesses, like I'm sure you have, and you're all over the place. And a lot of people you talk to, multi-millionaires and so on, they always say, right, like I tried this and I did this and I was hurt, then I was there. Very rarely someone makes extreme levels of wealth off of the first thing that they do. And I just hope. Do I think this is going to make me hundreds of millions of dollars? Absolutely, right? I don't even strive for hundreds of millions of dollars. Do I think this is going to put me in the seven-figure bracket? Most likely. And that makes me pretty excited. I don't know whether it will or not. We'll see what life has for me. But as of now, I think to date, this is the best offer and service I've offered. It needs a lot of refinement still, but it's certainly the best thing that I've come up with so far.
Yeah. What's your vision for the future?
Okay, I think minus the fact that the world is fixing to get nuked soon, if we're all alive in the next 10 years, which is actually beginning to look very, very gloomy, if you're clued up on that sort of thing, I would say that because of my belief system, it used to be money, cars, things like that. I would say right now, I would want as perfect of health that I could possibly get. I would want a business that is, I don't care particularly for a specific amount. I've never thought that in depth into it. But overall, enough financial income / success / consistency with everything, where I don't feel like I'm having success and then I'm going down and then I'm having success, that I have very little stress or worry about anything to do with finances. And I would like to have a wife, children, and be in a position where I can spend, say, 50% of my time in one area, 50% of my time in the other area, bring the whole family, bring all the children, and never have to think about finances and so on. That would be probably my ideal sort of vision right now of where I'm trying to track with everything. So optimal health, a more consistent business that I'm not just trying new things, and a little less selfish, thinking a little bit more like, is this business the one that can remain sustainable for a long enough time to make me enough money that I can provide for a family? And then once I've achieved that, or once I'm close to achieving that, wife and children.
Yeah. That's an awesome vision. I completely attest to that as well. I think you meant that you want to spend 50% of your time on the business and then 50% of the time on your family, maybe friends, things that you enjoy doing.
No, 50% of the time, as in like, so for example, I love Europe, obviously, because I'm from there, right? Go to Greece, Portugal, and things like that. And it's like every place you go, it's a similar vibe, but it's a different vibe. But then if you take like America, it's completely different, right? The church I've been going to is here as well, right? Which I don't have in Europe. So for me, I would like to be in a position where I've got a wife and children, and I can be like, hey, Our friends over in America, church in America, I jump on a plane, let's go there, we're going to stay there for 3 months. Oh, hang on, we're going to go back to Greece now. We're going to go back to the UK now. We're going to do this now. And traveling yourself, you realize it can get pretty expensive paying for flights and going here and going here. And when I started to quantify the cost of doing that across a wife, kids, and so on, I was like, that ain't cheap. So the vision right now is to be in a position where all of that is completely doable with no worries whatsoever. And I think people underestimate what that takes. Like, I think people overestimate how much money you need, but then if they sort of underestimate as well. Like, there's a middle ground. I don't think you need to be making 7 figures to have a wonderful family and a wonderful life. But I think making 3K, 4K a month and having a kids and a family and so on is in this current day and age is highly unsustainable. So I think the sweet spot, like you could even say 10, 20K, and 10, 20K is good, but 10, 20K a month is like, that's like a really good life for you and maybe a girlfriend. You add kids in the picture and so on, like I think you might even need to be pushing 40, 50K a month. I don't know, but overall I'm just thinking 40, 50, 60, 70K a month. If I hit that every month with this business, consistency, stack my money and don't do what I've done in the past, make a bunch and then just blow it on things, I'll be in a position for that. So that's kind of the goal.
Yeah. Have you ever made that clear for yourself? Like, hey, what would it actually cost to, I don't know, travel with my family, go place I want to go, eat the best food? Because now you say, hey, it's sort of like a 40, 50K, but...
Yeah, so I did it before, but I found the activity to be rather meaningless. And the reason why is because when you do something like that, you're planning as if the world, the economy, and your life is linear. To which it's not. And I can't count how many times I've said, if I wanted a penthouse in Cardiff in Wales, where I live, and I wanted a Range Rover, and I wanted this, and I ate this particular way, I would only need $4,500 a month. Okay, so you make that $4,500. But then the next month, you don't care about the Range Rover. So now it's changed. So now you've got to do the calculation again, right? So what I find to be easier is focus on, this is what I'm doing now, the mechanism in which you believe can take you to that level. Build the business, build your health, build your life. Focus on the internal. If all of that comes true, you're going to make a lot of money. You don't have to worry about the number, right? It's just going to happen. And in my experience, like let's say you make 10 grand this month. You could ask yourself the question, right, of how do I get to 20 and try to plan it. But you don't even need to ask yourself that question because I guarantee when you're making 10K a month, there's issues within that business that are irritating you that if you fix, will just put you at 20. So I don't really track like that anymore. I more so live by faith on a day-to-day basis and focus on the mechanism rather than the goal.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's also about the inputs that lead to the outputs. So you can focus on the output of like, hey, I want to get to 100K or I need to go there. Yeah. But what is going to get you there is 10 clients of 10K a month, right? Like maybe 20 clients of 5K a month. But that's the thing that's going to get you there. So what do you need to do for that is exactly what you've been saying. You need to fix problems in your business. Your delivery needs to be better. Your sales process needs to be better. You need to have more leads. And that's what I've always also taught my clients is the people that set the goal or that don't set the goal, the one that is going to get there is by doing the actions that are required to get there. But whether you set it or not. Yeah. Whether you set it or not, right? Like you can have the perfect goal. If you're not taking the actions that you need to take, you're not going to get there. Yeah. Let's change this conversation for the last few minutes. I see you drinking some glass bottled water. That's a nice biohack flex. What are for you the top 3 biohacks that you use personally? Because you said, hey, I've done a lot with health. I've had psoriasis. What are for you the 3 main things that are most important in terms of biohacking and health?
Okay, number 1, I would say, when you're entrepreneurial, because of your constant pursuit of success and your ability to think and your ability to analyze and your ability to work and so on, stress is always going to be there. And stress certainly is going to be the number one factor in your death, like 100%. If anything's going to age you quick, stress is going to age you quicker than anything else. I think you could eat a bad diet and have zero stress whatsoever, although I do believe a bad diet would create stress, but let's just say it didn't. You could eat a bad diet with very little stress or zero stress. And in my opinion, most probably live healthier than the guy who eats a very clean diet but is very stressed. So for me, I think stress should be tackled the number one. Most people tackle that through worldly things, right? Whether that be sleep optimization and so on, and all of that's important, and I do all of that, right? Blue light blockers, EMF reduction, everything you can think of, I do. Magnesium before bed, magnesium in the morning, sunlight, set my circadian rhythm, all these biohacks, right? Everything you can think of, I've done. Because again, I had a year and a half to do nothing but pay for things like this and think about it. However, in my personal life, nothing has brought me more ease or peace than having faith, right? Belief in God. Now, most people define God as, a universal thing. I believe in God, a higher power. I don't identify with any of that. I get specific. I believe the Bible, the Christian Bible, is the word of God. And I believe, the only person who can bring you true peace is Christ, in my opinion. So for me, my top biohack is prayer, reading the word, because it brings you comfort like nothing else. I mean, absolutely nothing. There is no worldly biohack that you can do to be in a chronic state of worry or stress or pain or a bad point in your life. And in a split second, 30 seconds of closing your eyes and looking to the sky, it'd be completely dissolved. Absolutely nothing. So that would be number one. Number two would obviously be diet. I stay in very good shape. I don't walk around shredded or lean or anything like that, but I do probably walk around 13%, 14% body fat, relatively lean. I weight train, and I have done from a young age, hence how I got my start in fitness. And within training, I'll throw a couple other biohack sort of things in there. Grounding is highly important in my opinion. I don't know. I've not looked into the true science of it. I have an idea of it with the negative ions and so on. And I don't know if it's pseudoscience or backed up. I have no idea. But all I know is whenever you do it and you take your shoes or your socks off and you go out in the sunlight and you sit down and you're barefoot on the grass, it does bring you a sense of calm. Whether it's placebo or not, I don't know, but I believe that makes a huge difference. And of course, I pair that with training as well. So sometimes I'll train outside, I'll have the sunlight, I'll make sure that I'm eating in a very animal-based diet, high in cholesterol, so I can synthesize the vitamin D. So overall, training / diet. And then a third one, because there's so many micro ones, I'm probably going to have to go there, although I've never had an issue with it. I'm probably going to have to go with sleep. Maybe sleep would be second. So maybe we'd go faith number one, sleep second, then training and fitness would probably be number three. Sleep for sure. I've never had sleep difficulties, really. Albeit when I was at my parents' house, I was in the attic, and it was not a small room by any means, but as I got bigger, I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'3", 6'4", I weigh like 185, 190, right? I'm a pretty big guy, and the attic is like this, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like this in it. And the room, this was way before I knew anything about biohacking, would get very stuffy, right? Especially in the summer. And there's carpet, so you can get dust and things like that. And, I would wake up quite frequently in the nights. I would, restlessness was heavy. I'd wake up with a lot of, just congestion in my nose, right? I never identified it to anything. It was definitely part diet and part, I guess, training environment and things like that. But the minute I moved into my own apartment and I was eating clean, because at home my mother's a fantastic baker, so she would make me all sorts of stuff and I would just absolutely pound them down in the name of bulking, right? And when I moved to mine and that sort of reduced and I was eating cleaner and the environment was free of dust and I had higher ceilings and things like that, my sleep transformed this on its own. I didn't need a coach. I didn't need any of that. In the past, I paid for a coach, and he didn't really do an awful lot. And I remember thinking, well, why? Because he was helping me with my circadian rhythm and all sorts of stuff. And I just found out that it was literally just a combination of all sorts of things, which is why I think a service like you offer is so valuable, because it's not one dimension. You have to cover every aspect, and a guy like yourself who's an expert on it can sit down. You probably could have spoke to me and said, show me your bedroom. And I would have showed you my bedroom, and you would have gone, that's a problem, that's a problem, that's a problem, EMF, that's a problem. And I could have fixed it all, right? But by default, me moving out into my own apartment, it kind of got fixed for me on accident, essentially. Right? And my sleep was so much better, like so much. I could go to sleep at, 9 p.m. and wake up at 9 a.m. if I wanted to, right? I could go to sleep at 9 p.m. and wake up at 3 a.m., work all day, train, and have no problems. Back home, I was napping every day. Every day. As soon as I moved out, never needed a nap. Just felt so much more energized. I don't drink coffee anymore. I used to drink coffee a lot. I have nothing against coffee. I love an espresso, especially if I'm in a place like Italy. Espresso, pain au chocolat, can't beat it. It's unbelievable. But I don't drink coffee very frequently anymore, just because I know I'm sensitive to anxiousness and anxiety. I don't really want to amplify it or affect my cortisol in any sense. But I used to live on coffee. I don't need that anymore. And I really relate sleep to be a very heavy part of all that. So it would be faith. I believe, Jesus is Lord. I believe he can save you if you choose to be. And then number 2, I believe physique, your health, training, diet, and so on. And then number 3, overall sleep. You've got to get really, really good sleep. So yeah, that would be my top 3 biohacks. I'm not perfect yet. I'm not in complete health. Of course, I've still got a bit I'm trying to fix, right? Still there in the years. However, minus this, look, you can look at my Instagram, you can look at my Facebook, you can look at my complexion, right? I'm a pretty healthy, in shape guy. And I've spent a lot of time on this. I'm not as clued up as you are. But yes, I'm knowledgeable in this field. And those 3 things, if somebody dials those in, they're going to have a very, 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 very different life and a very good life in life. And I think a really important thing with the faith as well is youngsters like ourselves and so on, not necessarily us in specific, but we spend so much time making money and we want to club and spend our money and blah, blah, blah. And we neglect, bigger questions and bigger picture things. And if you were to ask the average person, which is sad, right? How do you feel about death? What do you feel about it? Like most 15-year-old guys or just people in general, 40-year-old people would completely blank the question. Right? I'm not talking about that because it makes you feel uncomfortable. But if you get very comfortable with that idea and you truly believe you have eternal life, there is absolutely nothing in your life on a day-to-day basis that can create stress. So, and given stress is the number 1 factor in disease and death, if you can completely obliterate that, you're going to be a pretty healthy guy whether you like to eat donuts for breakfast or not.
Definitely, yeah. And it brings so much peace. For me, I'm still on this journey of finding out what I believe and where I want to go with this. But one of the principles I always keep in mind, which has been brought up by our conversation right now, is that everything happens for a reason. And one of my old coaches, he was a Muslim and he always said, God is watching your back and he knows what is right for you. And when I keep that principle in mind, whatever happens, you start viewing it in an entirely different way. Because instead of, to give you an example, this week I got hay fever for the first time in my life. So I never had it. And at first I was like, maybe you heard it in my voice, why do I get hay fever? I'm so healthy, I'm doing all of these things. And then I thought, okay, why is this a good thing? How can I surrender to this? Then I thought hey, maybe it's my job now to find out and research, hey, what has been caused by hay fever? How can you fix it with certain kind of natural supplements? How can you fix it with lifestyle? And then if I fix it for myself, I can also help my clients with it as well. Because a lot of clients are asking me as well now, hey, do you have something for hay fever? And it's just a tiny thing that for me changed the entire game. And I completely agree with you that the for you faith, for me now it's mindset, maybe it will turn into faith, is the most important thing that you can do for how you feel, and everything related to that. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's like you don't have to know everything now, but it is your responsibility to seek.
Yeah,
and it sounds like you're doing that. And if you're doing that, then you're on the right track.
Exactly. Yeah. Awesome, man. Matthew, it's been this hour has gone away so quickly. The last question I want to ask you, and I think in the future you'll come back, because I think we can talk for hours.
I think we can.
I asked this question to everyone that's on the podcast.
Sure.
Who has been your biggest mentor in life, and what did you learn from him or her, or what is something actionable that you can take away for the reader, for the listeners?
It's going to be cliche after I've just said, but I think the simplest answer is there is nothing in life that cannot be answered by opening the Bible.
And
boring answer, but that narrows it down for people.
Yeah, exactly. But I think as well, I've been reading parts of the Bible, and there's so much wisdom in there. And I found a lot of times when I was reading it that it just struck with me like it's something I needed at that exact time. Something I was struggling with.
A good angle on it to think about, which I think is often overlooked, is people read the Bible and they take it when they read Scripture as, wow, that was very interesting, intelligent, full of wisdom, all of which is true. But I think it's the wrong frame of mind. The correct frame of mind is to read it as if this is the literal word of God and he is literally speaking to you right now. Because that was the intent, that was the design. If you look at it from that viewpoint, it's very, very different compared to looking at it from an intellectual. If you look at it as in, wow, what does this mean? What does this parable mean? How does this work in my life? Okay, it's effective, sure. But if you look at it as, what is God telling me? How does this apply to my life? Very, very, very different approach. And in my opinion, you get far greater results. And simply by looking at it from that viewpoint and asking that question, you're doing as Christ says, right? He who seeks shall be found, or whatever it was called. But the point is if you look at it from that angle, and you truly seek and you truly ask, what is this? How does this apply to me? Then I believe that will be revealed to you, and it will be far more transformative than just looking at it from a more philosophical perspective. Because the Bible is very philosophical, but it's not philosophy. I believe it to be completely real, not to be interpreted. It's the real deal. Take it as it says. It applies to you. Read it, absorb it, implement it. You'll live a good life.
Yeah, amazing, man, amazing. I'm definitely going to be reading in that way from now on. I think it's a great shift to have, and it makes it more real, instead of it being something theoretical or philosophical that you think about. Yeah. Awesome. Matthew, I want to thank you for getting on the podcast. If anyone wants to contact you, I will link your Instagram, your Facebook down below. So for example, if you're a coach watching and you want to know more about Matthew Does, please send him a message. For now, I want to thank you for coming on, and I'll see you.